welcome back. I'm your girl Kimberly Nicole, and we are asking God rhetorical questions. So hey y'all, hey, happy Sunday. Glad to be with you all again for another episode. In this episode, we are talking about being overwhelmed. So for the past, I would say month, like really was when the new year hit, pretty much after my fast, I had been taking on a lot of things, right? Just doing a lot. And at one point, I'll probably say a couple weeks ago, not even a couple weeks ago, probably within this week, couple of weeks ago, whatever, I just felt overwhelmed. And I was like, God, you have given me these assignments, right? Like, I know you don't want me to fail on these assignments. So help me, send me what I need, send me the resources that I need. These are your assignments. So I know that you're going to help me with these assignments. So, what did I do? Of course I prayed about it, right? And I'm like, okay, we got to get some order, because what? You want me to do what? Especially when he gave me this last assignment for asking God. I said, okay, God, we can do this. However, comma. And I guess you know, however, comma, God. But I said, I need resources. I need the vision. I need to know what it is you want me to do, in what order you want me to do it, God. And I need to do it with minimum stress. Like I need to do it, because again, I have two other projects that I'm working on that was given to me at different times. You know, HEC was given to me almost 4 years ago. Hectic was given to me last year, and then boom, here we hit with another thing. And again, these are not mine. I know this because none of these ideas came from me. None of these things I actually prayed about. These things that actually came after, like either fasting or praying. And ultimately, I started thinking about when I started feeling like, okay, I got all of this stuff I got to get done. I got to get this done. I got to get this. And it reminds you, praying about other stuff, other situations are going on outside of just my businesses, right? And so I thought back on the story of Moses in Exodus. So if you have not read Exodus, I don't know. Well, if you follow me, then you all know that I'm reading the Bible book by book, brick by brick. And I finished Exodus about actually either the top of the year. No, I finished Exodus last year. I just have not gotten a chance to film this episode because I have been doing other things. So I finished Exodus, and now I'm on Leviticus. But now my church is doing the year of the Bible, and we just finished reading James. Now we're reading 1 Peter. And I don't know about y'all, but I can't focus on more than one book at a time. Like, I want to focus on one book at a time. So now I'm reading 1 Peter. I don't know when I'm gonna get back to Leviticus, because it's a task. Because when I read the Bible, I want to like read, write, take notes, reflect on it, come sit back and do all the things, to where it takes time. So I guess I could try to read multiple books, but it probably won't work for me, and I'm not. And I just told y'all about all this stuff I had to go on. Anyway, so in Exodus, the whole book of Exodus just kind of walks through for me how God orders your steps from birth. He already know what your assignment is going to be and where he wants you to be from birth. Like with Moses, where Pharaoh ordered for all of the males to be killed, but he was saved. He was ultimately brought back to his mother and fed from his mother's womb, from his mother's breast. But that just shows you just how aligned his work and how purposeful he was going to be for God's work. So I was like, okay, God, you don't make no mistakes. You know the struggles that I have from what I probably didn't get at birth, right? Things that I didn't grow up with, things that I have had to self-teach or rely on you in order to provide to me. So you're going to have to help me with this, God, because I don't know about any of these things that I'm doing, but you knew, like, you had a purpose for my life. I didn't know what my purpose was going to be until, of course, I started listening to God. And So that was one thing that I got from Exodus as it relates to Moses. And then Moses is going on minding his business, where God pretty much exposes himself to him in the burning bush, you know what I mean? And that's when Moses first heard from God, and God told him, go get my people, right? Go get my people out of Egypt. And that's when that's the stories that we pretty much know, where it's let my people go, right? That whole not story, that whole, well, I guess, yeah, history of how Moses went to free the Israelites from Egypt, and the Pharaoh was not having it. Like that, I can have a whole video on those the plagues and all of the attempts that God gave the Pharaoh to set his people free. But it was just time after time where Moses is going back saying, hey man, God said do this, and Pharaoh just kept playing in God's face. And so that's a whole nother story, but that was kind of like that was the main assignment, right? The main assignment for Moses was to go and set his people free. And Moses was like, why me? Who am I to go to the Pharaoh and say, let my people go, right? And he literally asked, and I'm sure if I read back in Genesis, but that was one of the first times when I realized that you do have permission to ask God questions, right? Like somebody mentioned to me when she was growing up that she was taught that you just pray and you don't ask God any questions or whatever. And I was like, oh, I wasn't raised that way, thankfully. But that's when Moses asked God, who am I that I should, could go to Pharaoh? And God answered him and said, I will be with you. So go. Like, I got you covered. And then Moses was like, listen, you want me to go free all these slaves. I'm not in a position to do this. Like, I'm not in a position to do all these things. So again, I'm thinking about myself, like, I'm not in a position financially to do these things, time-wise to do these things. It's a party of one. It's just me. God, who, what, when, where, and how? Asking God rhetorical questions, right? And then, so Moses began pleading with God of saying, like, please get somebody else to do it. God, please get somebody else to do it, because listen, my speech is horrible. How am I supposed to go and, convince these people? He was like, okay, I got you covered. Let me do one. Don't you got a brother named Aaron who speaks really well? I'm going to send Aaron with you, and Aaron is going to be the person that talks, that convinces the people, but the message is coming from me through you, right? Now through him. So he couldn't back out then, because God was like, okay, that's your problem, that's your concern, I got you. And so as I started thinking about my situation, I was like, okay, because at every turn where I start feeling overwhelmed or I start feeling like I can't do it, God sends me either somebody or something to confirm I got you. So even with all that I have going on, y'all, when I feel so super overwhelmed about money, how I'm gonna pay this, how I'm gonna get that, I need to Google this, I don't understand this line of business, I don't understand, like, getting into the tech space, getting into another space, I'm just like, but again, I'm overwhelming myself for nothing, because at every turn God has shown me he is God, and he will provide knowledge, resources are financial and people, right? Like, those are resources. He will provide all things. I just have to call on him at all times and at every turn. I can't take on these assignments on my own, and I think that's where we go wrong. You have these assignments, or you may even not see them as assignments. I see them all as assignments. You have these assignments and you're trying to take them on by yourself. For one, that's not even how God intended us to operate. He always intended us to operate in a community. We need people. God even sent for Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, in chapter 18 pretty much said, okay, now you had this really big assignment. You got to meet with all these people, hear all their problems, hear all their complaints. You're going to burn yourself out. You cannot do this by yourself. You need to train people up, send them out, let them answer, and give them the rights and authority. Pretty much delegate, train them up to be leaders and delegate the assignments. Jethro, is his name Jethro? Yeah, Jethro. He was like, now, if you think this is a good idea, also confirm it with God. So not only is when you're acting and doing things, you do go and seek wise counsel. At the same time, you're still getting confirmation from God. Like somebody may tell you something, you're like, okay, now that makes perfect sense. You take that information and you still take it to God. Because remember, business Christian entrepreneur 101 is God is your primary business partner. He is your first that you go to get advice, and then of course God sends people. So in that book he talks about again delegating. Like you can't do this on your own, and Moses was like, you're right, but that was God aligning him with that advice in order to make sure he does not overwhelm himself. That was when I read that, and when I started thinking about me being overwhelmed, I was like, delegating. How can I get some of this stuff off of my plate? So what I started doing was writing. Even though I had wrote out all of my tasks and I organized all of my thoughts. And Bishop said something today that hit me that says when, I think Killian's law, that when you write it down, half of the work has already been done. Because once you write stuff down, you realize that it's not as heavy of a lift as you think it is. It's just when it's cluttered in your head, you can't see the end. But when you write it down, it gives you a sense half of the work is already done. And it hit me because I literally just created a task tracker, and I organized everything I needed to do by the brand, right? By whether it was my consulting company, my Asking God brand, or my I also teach part-time. I'm an instructor at a college, and my tech platform, right? So I got all 4 of these projects that I'm working on. I organized them. I organized the things that I needed to do for those projects, and then I prioritized them. Right, so it was certain things that I knew I need to get done, but it wasn't high priority. So I was able to move the date to those. So I was like, I don't have to think about that today because I can't even really do that until I do this. So get that out of your head. And now I was able to just really focus on what needed to be focused on. And then God started sending me resources. He started sending me people that was coming in to help. Like I was struggling real bad with Hectic, which is my tech company, and I don't know anything about tech as far as marketing it and all of that. That's a whole new world. And I brought on a consulting company, and one of the partners, stuff came up and she wasn't able to help, and I'm like, but that was a big piece of it, the work that she was going to be helping me with. And long story short, God sent another one of his angels to stand in the gaps. The lady is going to help me at no charge to me. Again, things that I was worried about, God just kept showing me, I got you. It was another thing that I was working on that I was going to get a virtual assistant for, and my BFF came in and she was like, you ain't got to go pay nobody to do that. I'll help you with that. Y'all, I'm not going to cry. It is absolutely amazing to live in the presence of God, because pause. Okay, I'm back. I had to gather myself, child. That's the beauty of doing this channel, is I just never know when I'm going to be hit with an emotion or feeling of gratitude or my testimony. And that is why I continue to do this. I don't care if I have one person watching or 1,000. I get to tell my story and it's on record. Like, I get to record my stories and I can look back on it. I can look back through my journals and like really testify as it relates to how awesome God is. And it's not, and it, let me just say this. Times for me to praise God, it doesn't mean I got 1,000, 100,000 followers. It doesn't mean I got, friends falling out the wazoo. I'm partying all the time, or I'm just surrounded. It just means I have a sense of peace I don't need any of it. Bank account on E don't matter. Don't matter. I have peace in knowing that at every single turn, when my back is against the wall, when I think my back is against the wall, every single time, y'all, and I'm not telling you a lie, I'm telling you what I've experienced. When I feel overwhelmed and I call on his name and I ask him, God, help me, he shows up every single time. And it's not just for me. He started it with Moses and has shown up ever since then for plenty of his children to follow after that. Plenty can tell the story of how God has shown up for them. And as long as you call on him and know that he is the first. So when I felt overwhelmed, I called on him and he said, I got you. He has brought everything that I need and then some. He has allowed me to do things that I've always wanted to do, and now I'm able to do it. And even though I feel like I don't feel the overwhelming feeling anymore, and I'm sure I will have a moment or at some point. It was during that time, it was overwhelming. But again, writing it down, speaking on it, like not hiding that's another thing too. I think a lot of times we hide in it because we want to feel like we got it all together. I told my marketing consultant when I was working with her, I was like, I just don't feel it. I feel overwhelmed. And she saw it. She saw it in my face, and she was like, I got to get, like, on her own spirit was like, I got to help her. I got to get her what she needs. And she brought in another resource. My best friend hearing my cries, and she was like, no, I have the time. I can help. And then in doing those things, you also have to make sure you return those favors, not in those same ways, but you also have to be the person that don't just receive, that I make sure I turn around and give. And if I have a tool or a resource, I give freely and willingly to other people as well, because it is the way God moves. He's doing it through us, through his children, through his believers. I am the answer to somebody's prayer. Somewhere I've been the answer. Like, one real story, I'm seldom on Facebook, and I started back on Facebook when I started doing these my YouTube channel, but I'm not active on any of them. I post and I go about my business. But anyway, this particular time, I think I have been posting, and I definitely don't read my messenger in Facebook, but I read a messenger, and it was from a young lady who knew that I did like financial aid, and she was overwhelmed at the thought of how she's going to get her son in college, and she just did not know where to go. But she said that God told her, she was like, I just had to listen to God, because your information, or you came up, she was being obedient, and she just got out of her own way, and she asked for help. And I gave it to her willingly. Like, I am grateful. I have always said that I know that I'm doing passion work because I would do it for free. If it's anything that I can help somebody with, especially when it comes to what I know, and that's higher ed, enrollment management, financial aid, I give that stuff away. Now, granted, I will invoice. But when I'm talking about people, like businesses, y'all run me my money. But people, I give that stuff away. Like, that cost me nothing to help somebody. Like, I felt so good helping her and get organized with getting her baby, getting ready for college. I followed up with her and like just checking in, because I gave her a couple of tasks. And when I tell you Miss Ma'am did all of her tasks, she was ready to go, and she had such a sense of confidence now, because she feels like I have what I need to move forward. But that was just God answering her prayer through me. Like, I was an answered prayer. Just like my best friend is an answered prayer to me. The marketing person I was working with was an answered prayer to me. Anybody that has offered me any advice or anything, his answered prayers, from my brother fixing lights, from just anybody that comes in and help, are answered prayers. So like I've said it before, like, how are you being a blessing to somebody else? Like, it's a community thing. We have to do this thing together as a group, because we cannot do it alone. So when I feel overwhelmed, I'm asking God, and I'm bringing in my community. I'm telling where I'm struggling. Black women, we cannot do it on our own. Like, yes, I'm a proud member of the 92, and we try to tell y'all, for those that know, you know, but we can't do it alone. It's clear we can't do it alone, right? Because people are not listening. But you have to bring in that community, and you got to bring in someone that's wise. You got to have wise people around you that are governing themselves in the space of Christianity and their belief in God and Christ, because none of that other stuff will matter. So, yeah. What do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed? When you're feeling like that assignment is just too big? You think about Moses. You think about Moses and the assignment that God gave him, and you think about all the things that God did to help him even further along in Moses' journey when he was building the tabernacle. God designed what he wanted that tabernacle to look like. He designed it from the arches, from the garments that the priests would wear, from the gold to the silver to the threads. God designed it, and he was like, okay, now Moses, I want it made like this. Moses is like, okay, I got you. And then God sent him the people he needed to get the work done. So he don't just give us these big assignments and then just say no. He just needs us to do. He needs people to just do. I'm going to give you this assignment. You just have to do. Just start moving. Start moving with the assignment, but you move and you ask and you praying. Moving and praying. Moving and praying. Moving and praying. Bishop said something today what he kind of closed on. I want to find it because it just kept, when he kept saying it, it kept hitting me. He said, when you pray, you set your mind like a trap, and you patiently wait to catch the thoughts of God. Just let that sit. When you pray, you set your mind like a trap, and you patiently wait to catch the thoughts of God. Because God is going to come in the form of an answer, in the form of a strategy, in the form of peace. When you praying, you're sending something up in the universe, and you're waiting to catch what God has to say. And that ultimately is how I came to the point of, when I feel overwhelmed or when I'm feeling like I'm having a task, me and God need to have a conversation, right? I need to ask him and just wait for him to respond. Pray about it and then wait for him to respond. I'm currently waiting on him to respond to some things now. That's a whole nother subject. But yeah, staying on topic. What do you do when you're feeling like that assignment is too big? For me, I went back to my readings of what I knew, how God moved for Moses, which means I know he'll do it for me. And he has. He has, and he will, and he continues. And I do feel, again, my list hadn't gotten any shorter, but now I got help. Now I got help. Now somebody else is doing those things. Things that was on my list initially, like Moses did with the people. He assigned other judges to help with that. Now I have some help, but that's because I called on help. I prayed about help. I talked about help. I asked for help, right? So yeah, when you're feeling overwhelmed or that assignment is too big, just always remember that God sends you what you need, whether it's people, resources, whatever it is that you need. He's going to provide. So see y'all on the next one. Bye.